Good morning, you guys. Thanks so much for being here. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being caught up and where you should be. Today's lesson is on solving absolute value equations. And absolute value equations are just a special kind of equation. Um, Make sure that as you're watching this, you have a piece of paper out and something to write with. Please follow along and do your best to try and learn what I am trying to teach you. Okay. When you are done watching this video, if you will please join me in the practice room, we'll do some problems together before you take your quiz. Today's lesson and class should be pretty short for you, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so solving absolute value equations. Before we move to the next slide, I just want to show you what an absolute value symbol looks like. Okay, so when I say absolute value symbol looks like this. Okay, and if there is a number inside of this symbol, we would say, what is the absolute value of 5? Or what is the absolute value of -4? Or what is the absolute value of 13? Okay, so if you have something that's inside the absolute value symbol, what that means is it means the distance from 0 on a number line. Okay, so absolute value is just a distance. If we're talking about the absolute value of 5, well, here's 5 on our number line, right? Let me go ahead and do that in a different color. So here's 5 on a number line. So the absolute value of 5 would be 5 spaces away from 0 on the number line. You can see if we count that, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. Okay. The absolute value of -5 is also 5. Because it's a distance, the number of spaces is 5. Okay, so absolute value, whatever's in the absolute value symbol, is always positive when we figure out what the absolute value is. Okay, like for example, if you have a -4, the absolute value of that would be +4. If you have a 6, the absolute value of that would be 6. If you have the absolute value of -7, that would be a +7. If you have the absolute value of -10, that would be +10. Okay, so whatever's in the absolute value, we always make that positive. Okay, that's what absolute value means. So when we talk about solving absolute value equations, when we solve an equation, we're trying to figure out what we can plug in for the variable that will make the equation true, right? So if you have the absolute value of x equals 5, and I ask you to solve this, what I'm asking you for is to figure out what we can plug in for x that will make this true. Well, if we have a number line here, and this is 5, and this is -5, we know that there are actually two numbers that are 5 spaces away from 0 on the number line, 5 and -5. So if x equals 5, that would give us a solution. Or if x equals -5, that would also give us a solution because the absolute value of 5 is 5 and the absolute value of -5 is also 5. Okay, so let's say I give you the absolute value of x equals 7. Well, again, if we're talking about what is 7 spaces away from 0 on a number line, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the positive direction. So 7 spaces from 0. And also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. -7 would also give us a solution because -7 is 7 spaces away from 0 on the number line. Okay, so x could equal 7 or x can equal -7. Both of those make this equation true. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this one. The absolute value of x equals 2. Well, we could say that if x were 2, that would make it true. Or if x is negative 2, that would also make it true, because you guys can see that 2 and negative 2 are both 2 spaces away from 0 on the number line. Okay, both of these give us a true statement. Okay, let's look at one that's a little bit harder. X plus 3 equals 6. Okay, so we're trying to figure out what value of x is going to make this true. Okay, now if this x plus 3 were a 6, we know that the absolute value of 6 is 6. Or if this x plus 3 is a negative 6, we know the absolute value of negative 6 is also 6. So what we have to do to solve this equation is we have to figure out what value of x is going to make x plus 3 equal to 6, and what value of x is going to make x plus 3 equal to negative 6. So now we solve these equations. You guys should be really good at solving one-step equations by now. To isolate this variable, to get rid of the plus 3, we do a subtract 3. So x equals 0. That would be a solution. Okay, we know that 0 plus 3, oh, I'm so sorry. This would be 6. This would be 3. We know that 3 plus 3 is 6. The absolute value of 6 is 6. Okay, let's go ahead and solve this equation for the x by subtracting 3 from both sides. So x equals negative 9. If we plug negative 9 in for the x, negative 9 plus 3 is negative 6. The absolute value of negative 6 is 6. Okay, so basically when you're solving an absolute value equation, you set whatever's in the absolute value equal to both the positive and the negative of what's on the other side. Okay, so let's try another one. The absolute value of x minus 4 is equal to 7. Okay, so if we're going to solve this absolute value equation for the x, we know that if this x minus 4 is a 7, we know the absolute value of 7 is 7. Or if the x minus 4 is negative 7, we know the absolute value of negative 7 is also 7. So we take and we set the x minus 4 equal to 7 because we want to figure out what value of x is going to make x minus 4 equal 7, because we know that will give us a true statement. And we want to know what value of x is going to make x minus 4 equal to negative 7, because we know that will also give us a true statement. So to solve this equation for the x, we add 4 on both sides. So x equals 11. Over here, we would add 4 on both sides. So x equals negative 3. When you're solving an absolute value equation, there is always 2 solutions. Okay, we know that 11 minus 4 is 7. The absolute value of 7 is 7. We know that negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. Absolute value of negative 7 is 7. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at this one right here. The absolute value of 2x equals 4. So the absolute value of 2 times x equals 4. So if we're going to solve this for the x, we know that the absolute value of 4 is 4, and we know the absolute value of negative 4 is also 4. Okay, so we take this 2x and we say, I want to know what the value of x is when we set 2 times x equal to 4. And I want to know what the value of x is when we set 2 times x equal to negative 4. Okay, so whatever this is, we're going to set it equal to 4, and we're going to set it equal to negative 4. So then we divide by 2 on both sides. X equals 2. Divide by 2 on both sides. X equals negative 2. Both of those give us a solution for this absolute value equation. Okay, Let's look at another one. Okay, you guys can see here that we have 4 times the absolute value of x is equal to 36. So before we can solve this, we need to isolate this absolute value. We need to get this absolute value all by itself. So to get rid of the multiplication of 4, so that the absolute value is alone, we're going to divide by 4, which we need to do on both sides. So the absolute value of x is equal to 9. And then from there, it's really easy. We know that x can be a 9. That would make it true, because the absolute value of 9 is 9. Or we know that the x can be a negative 9, because the absolute value of negative 9 is also 9. So both of these give us a solution. Okay, let's look at the next one. M, absolute value of m, divided by 14 equals 5. Okay, so let's isolate our absolute value. To get rid of the multiplication of 14, or the division of 14, we're gonna use multiplication. We have to times by 14 on both sides. So the absolute value of m is equal to 70. Okay, and then from there, we know our two solutions would be 70 and negative 70. Both of those would give us a true statement. Okay, let's do another example problem together. The absolute value of a divided by negative 3 equals negative 9. So first thing we're going to do is isolate the absolute value by getting rid of this division of negative 3 by using multiplication. If we multiply the left side by negative 3, we have to multiply the right side by negative 3. So the absolute value of a is equal to 27, and now we solve. We know the absolute value of 27 is 27. We also know the absolute value of negative 27 is 27. So our solutions would be 27 and negative 27. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this challenge one really quick. Okay, negative 6 times by the absolute value of y equals 42. So to get rid of the multiplication of negative 6, we would use division. Okay, the absolute value of y equals negative 7. Okay, now in this case, we would say there is no solution. Remember that absolute value is always a distance from 0 on a number line. Distance will never be negative. Okay, so we would say there's no solution. Let's go ahead and try one more, and then I think you guys are going to be ready for some practice with me in breakout room number 2. Okay, so the absolute value, so 2 times the absolute value of 2x plus 4 equals 8. So to solve this absolute value equation, our first step is to isolate the absolute value. We need to get rid of the multiplication of 2. We're going to do that by using division. If we divide by 2 on the left side, we have to divide by 2 on the right side, which gives us the absolute value of 2 times x plus 4 is equal to 4. Okay, now from there, we set up our two equations. Okay, remember when you're solving an absolute value equation, you're always going to set up two equations. We're going to figure out what value of x makes 2x plus 4 equal to 4, because we know the absolute value of 4 is 4. And we're going to figure out what value of x makes 2x plus 4 equal to negative 4, because we know that the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So we set up our two equations, and then we just solve. We would subtract 4 from both sides. 2 times x equals 0. Divide by 2. X equals 0. That's one of our solutions. We would subtract 4 here and here. So 2 times x equals negative 8. Divide by 2 on both sides. X equals negative 4. That is one of our solutions. Okay. Thanks, you guys. From here, I want you to go ahead and join me in breakout room number 2. We're going to practice a few more of these together before you take the quiz. See you in a minute.